Okay, in this video I'm going to have a look for the start of injection maps, or SOI maps as people often call them. At the moment I'm in the duration area, so they're duration maps, so I'm just going to go and have a look for start of injection. It's a reasonable way through the file in this direction, I hope. Right, there we go. Now they look a little bit like start of injection maps, so that would be the first one, which is usually designated 0, so 0, 1, 2 and so on. What I'm going to do is I'm going to deliberately jump back this way. Now I'm going to take a guess, without counting them, I'm going to take a guess that that one there is the last one of this set, which is 9. Now that's just based on looking at lots of files, but the reason I've taken that guess is deliberate because of this little bit here, because I think that that is the axes data for all of the previous maps. So I think that the previous maps go SOI 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, so this would be 9, and then this is the data, the axis data for all of those previous maps. Now you can't be sure because this little bit of information is sometimes at the end here, it's sometimes at the beginning at the other end, and it's sometimes nowhere near. In other words, it's well before the start or well after the end, so you can't be sure. But I noticed as I scrolled past that this was here, and that did seem a little bit suspicious, so I thought to myself, that could be data that I am going to be looking for later anyway. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change to text view and check, but before I do that I'll just highlight that bit, because then that will put me in roughly the right spot straight away without me having to look. Right, now I've got 16 and 14 there. Now those you would assume are numbers for axes data. Now what I would like this to be is 14 units wide or 14 columns wide, so let's have a little quick, because if it's not I'll have to change the size. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Oh well, it is 14 anyway, so that's okay. Obviously if it wasn't 14 I would have to use W to make less columns or M to make more columns, but it's okay. Now I want 16 down there out of the way because I'm assuming that the map is going to end there, because that's the address before that 16 for the axis. Right, so if I select across to there, I've got one row of a possible 16. So 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Right, I've now got a selected group of 16 by 14. So if I press K, so there we go, I'll just pull that down out of the way because I want to be able to see this bit. Right, I'm going to click on there and press delete to make sure the highlight's not getting in the way. Right, 16, so that first block of data there for an axis should be the one for 16, which is this one here, because it runs 0 to 15 as we view it, so that will be the 16 one. So if I double click there and I say go and get the data from the EEPROM and use the cursor as your pointer and then click OK, has it gone and found it? Yeah, it has found something. Now if you do this and it doesn't find anything and the whole thing turns into a mess, it's usually because you've left this switched on, sync cursors. So it's worth checking before you do this sort of thing that that is off, or wait until it all goes wrong and then looking up here and going, oh, I should have turned that off. Right, now this one then, if we move to here, should be for our 14 axis. So if I double click there, and if I now say go to the EEPROM, look where the cursor is, okay, right, I've now got 2 lots of axis data. Seems reasonable. Just give it that highlight. Excuse me. Right, well, we'll guess that that is, or we'll assume that that is engine speed in revs per minute. Seems perfectly sensible idea. I'll just come out again. Okay, so this one is probably going to be injection quantity, in which case it will be milligrams per stroke, in which case we will want 0.01 there and at least 1 point after the decimal point. That seems quite reasonable. These numbers we know are probably crankshaft angle. Now we'll take a guess and we'll call this start of injection 9. I'm going to be lazy and call it SO9. We think it's probably going to be crankshaft angle. Now if it's crankshaft angle, we know that it will be 0.023437, and so we'll give it a couple of decimal points and then we'll have a look. Right, let's have a look at what we've got. Let's make that a little bit bigger. Now we had duration times or duration angles running right up to about 43, and we've got here a start of injection running up to bordering on 30, so 27. So there is a fair difference between start of injection and the actual length of time for injection in some respects, but we would have to do a direct comparison. We'd have to pick a particular figure and compare it on two graphs to give us a better clue, rather than me just saying, oh look, that looks roughly like that. Right, now I won't do all of these because obviously if I just close that one out of the way, if this one is 8 it will be the same as 9 in terms of setting it up, and if the one in front of it is 7 it will be the same. I'll just point out something that should be fairly obvious to you, which is that if you look, this one starts more or less 435 and finishes 1152. So there is a fair chance that if I grab 1152 there and go zooming up here and look for a jump from a small number to a large number like that, there's 639 and then suddenly it's 1237. So there is a fair chance that if I go across at that point, that will be the map. Now I can double check by counting, because if I've got this right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, it's 16, and so if I press K, it's there. 15 by 13 as it shows, which is in effect 16 by 14. And so I could select the next one by the same quick method. I could go from there and then look for the next jump from a small number to a large number and assume that the small number is the row for the first row of that map. So I could quickly do that. So in other words, I could just accept, I could quickly accept that, and I could do exactly the same again. It's just that by accepting them, of course, there's no information going in, but there's 640, go across to there, press K and say OK. I'll have to go back and give these names later, but this just speeds up my getting the maps. K all onto my list over here if I want to do it this way. Delete that to get rid of the highlight, go up, say yep, that's probably the line I'm looking for. Notice I'm not bothering to count at all now, I'm just assuming that I must be correct. I'll just do the same with that one. Straight up, there's the low number, across to there, K, OK, delete that, again straight up, lowest number, across, K, OK, accept that. Let's get rid of that highlight. Now whether this is quicker or not is debatable, obviously, because I'm not actually entering any data, so I'll still need to go back and fill in all the little bits afterwards. But it does get me a collection of maps fairly quickly. I just need to make sure I don't make a mistake as I go. So am I nearly there? Does that look like it might be the last one? It does, doesn't it? So that looks like it might be the last one. The last one you sometimes will need to count depending on what's in front of it. But these are all 512 and then it's suddenly 0. So I think there's a fair chance that if I count those it's going to be 16. But I'm not going to bother, I'm just going to say OK, because that will tell me 16, yep, 14. So that's OK. So there's my map, so I can check, can't I? So 9, and then that's the same, but 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. So it looks like I've got them. No, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. But I will need to go back and give those all the information so that they're done correctly, so that they will make sense when looked at a later date. You can skip adding all the data correctly at this point if you want to when you're playing with maps, but I would advise people not to, because there's nothing worse than coming back to a map later to do a check only to find that you didn't fill it in properly, because it's just annoying. So it often pays to do everything properly when you're doing it so that you're not confronted with a mess at a later date. Okay, well, I'll assume that that's plenty of information to allow people to find the start of injection maps. And what I'll do is I'll go through, once I've shut this video down, and finish putting the data in for the rest of them.